Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with jazz bassist, composer, and arranger Pedro Giraudo. He is promoting his newest CD that is the theme of his life, 2018's An Argentinian in New York. He actually moved to New York City in 1996 and has gone on to perform in a wide variety of musical projects, both of his own award-winning ensembles and as a member of several prominent ensembles, ranging from tango to jazz. In 2014, Ruben Blades CD, Tangos, on which he recorded the bass, won 2 Grammy Awards. He's got a lot of stories, and he has a long road in jazz already. So get to know him and dig this interview, my friends.
So, Pedro, thank you for taking a minute to talk to Neon Jazz, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
So let's dive right in here and talk about your latest album, which is Argentina in New York. Talk to me about this project, and it seems like it kind of epitomizes who you are and the journey that you've made in your life to New York.
Absolutely. What you just said is very true. Do a little history. So I moved from Argentina in 1996, and then, from the year pretty much 2000, I started having bands of my own, which grew from a sextet to a big band. Eventually, that led me for an invitation to conduct the WDR big band in Germany, to do kind of a program of very kind of Argentine influenced jazz with the big bands, and the recording of that concert is the material presented on the CD.
So talk to me about your childhood growing up in Argentina. How did you get involved in music, more specifically jazz? Just kind of talk to me a little bit about growing up there.
Absolutely. Well, that's a fairly easy question to answer. I grew up in a musical family. My father was a conductor. So from a very early, the early stages of my life, I was, exposed to music. I played, violin and piano when I was a child. And eventually I became a teenager and, wanted to quit everything. And I eventually did. And when I was, 17 years old, I started missing, kind of my active role in music again. So I started playing electric bass. And started playing in rock bands, and eventually, I started looking to a little bit more sophisticated music. So I kind of moved a little bit towards the kind of jazz fusion, which was very popular during the 90s. Yes, and that eventually, brought me to, want to pursue a career in music, and that led me to look for universities in the United States. And I auditioned in a few, but mainly the two kind of main options were in Miami and in New York. And I remember, loving Miami when I, auditioned there. I loved the campus, and it was all very beautiful. The weather was perfect. But then I, took the plane to New York, and I just remember the feeling when I got off the subway, getting off the airport, that was like, this is my place, it felt like home immediately. So, I came here, to New York. I studied at Manhattan School of Music, and things have changed, but back, in the late 90s, Manhattan School of Music was a pretty kind of a conservative school, and, electric bass players were not kind of super welcome. So eventually I started playing the acoustic bass, and I fell immediately in love with the instrument, and, it was kind of a gradual switch, but eventually I stopped playing electric bass and, played, only acoustic bass, which is almost the case. Now I think I play probably 1% of my gigs on electric and all the rest on acoustic.
So what were those first gigs in New York like? I mean, you obviously felt comfortable going there. You probably dreamed about it for a while. What did it feel like when you were on stage there?
Oh, well, it was a very gradual process. New York, it's an amazing city, but it's, as you can imagine, very competitive. So I started doing, what all of us New York musicians do, playing a lot of different styles, which, you can definitely hear in my music. I still nowadays I play with, jazz ensembles, big bands. I play, traditional Cuban music. Last week I was playing with an Afro-Peruvian band. I played Venezuelan music, Brazilian music. Nowadays I play a lot of, tango, Argentinian tango. So it is kind of a process of, just getting exposed to a lot of different music and a lot of different venues too. That's something that I love about New York, that, one day you're, touring Japan or playing Carnegie Hall, and then the next day you're playing in a tiny, club in the village. And, I continue doing, it all, the very big stages, the tours, and, the tiny clubs in the city. So it's a very kind of varied and fun.
So you've won 2 Grammys, and, you're obviously in a very different position now than you were when you came to New York. What was it like to win a Grammy?
Well, it was those 2 Grammys I won for my bass playing in Ruben Blades' album Tangos. And it was really, really special because of something actually very specific, which is that, as I mentioned, when I moved here, I started playing a lot of different kinds of music. And, one of them was Afro-Cuban music. And I used to play along with CDs, to get a better, feel of the music and learn, the bass lines and the language. And the album that I played, I think, with pretty much every day for, years was a live recording of Ruben Blades or Ruben Blades in New York. And so to later on, fast forward, I think 15 years, and see yourself playing, with Ruben Blades article, the Grammys was really felt very much like a milestone to me.
Along with bass, playing the bass, you're an arranger and a composer. How do all of these different parts of you come together to make you who you are as a musician?
It happens quite often that naturally I think it feels like there are a lot of very different things. The same way the kind of my tango career with my jazz career kind of feels like different things. But, I very much feel that it is all the same. It's all just music, just like different aspects of, being a musician. I think, you play differently when you're a composer. You arrange differently when you're a performer. And when you have a lot of different experiences. So I think it all as just kind of the one thing of being, a musician. And the same thing with my tango music and my jazz. I feel it's just, maybe the instrumentation is very different. But the music is all just, music. As Ellington, said, there are 2 kinds of music, good music and bad music. I think it's all just like music. And the same thing for the different parts of it, like the arranging and the composing and the playing. It's kind of a different points of view of the same thing. I mean, it does kind of generate a little extra stress on my, kind of time management. I have to make sure, I can keep my, fingers playing in tune and, finish, my, compositions or arrangements, on time. So that's pretty much the challenge. But but I see it all as kind of one thing.
You've been able to collaborate and play with a lot of really great people. William Cepeda, Pablo Ziegler, Kenny Garrett, Branford Marsalis. What have you learned from people that have been around for a long time in the jazz world that has helped you with young players when you played with them?
Oh, well, it depends very much on the musicians that from all those people that you just mentioned, I learned different things from all of them. Sometimes it's something musical. I don't know, I've learned, with Pablo Ziegler, I've played for, I think now 11 years. And from him, I learned so much about, kind of musical presence on stage, and also from composition. From William Cepeda, I kind of learned to be kind of a little like fearless when it comes to writing, to really challenge musicians when you write arrangements. That's something that, stayed with me. I remember with Kenny Garrett, when I was playing with him, I just could not believe, just the level of energy. I mean, when I felt, he had reached an already incredible climax in his solo, he would just continue going and go deeper and deeper and deeper and more exciting. And that was something that, I still, try to mimic in a way. So it depends very much on the musician, all these people have so much to teach and to be learned from that, I absorb what I can and what I feel, I can, takes.
So what live jazz shows have you seen that really moved you, that made a profound impact on you?
Oof, there are many. Let me think. Well, I've seen Keith Jarrett a few times, Brad Meldau a few times. It was amazing. From the younger generation, I remember being very moved with a show I heard at Jazz Gallery with Ben Wendell, Maria Schneider. Pretty much every time I see her big band, I just am in awe of how well some can write for a big band. I love to hear kind of the weight of the tradition of the Village Vanguard Orchestra. Miguel Zenon, that's somebody that I've seen a few shows that he is really, it's like a little gentle punch in the chest, let's call it. But yeah, it's it's I couldn't really tell you all that, but I think I covered the main ones.
Beautiful. So, how do you feel about your career so far? You've been in New York for quite some time now. Things have moved forward. You've played with so many people. You've won Grammys. Are you happy with what's going on?
Yes, but it's something that I actually remember talking to a very, very dear friend when I was a student at Manhattan School of Music. And actually, you kind of made reference before in another question to this kind of idea of like plans and so on. And for me, actually, I don't think about it as a career. I'm just focusing on moving forward and I make daily decisions to really keep enjoying my profession. I love my profession. I love being a musician. I love to perform, and I make on daily basis decisions that kind of keep me happy doing what I do. And so I don't really have kind of like a career-oriented goals. Maybe I should. Maybe a lot of people there are thinking right now, well, you definitely should. But for me, to keep sane and to keep happy, I've been kind of just like always going with the flow, always being, productive. That's something that, if there is a rule in what I do, for myself, is that I always want to be productive. I always want to be, writing music. I'm always looking for gigs. I'm always, trying, to practice as much as I can. So that's kind of my motto, just like continue being productive.
Beautiful. So why do you love jazz?
I'm going to go rewind a little, one more. I love a lot of music. Right now, before you called, I was, listening to the St. Matthew's Passion of Bach. So I love music in general, and I take a lot of it, from all kinds of different kinds of music. I mean, from jazz, the things that I've, used in my big band in particular. I mean, what I love is that kind of tradition feel that the rhythm section has, the interplay with the soloist. Improvisation, I love the instrumentation. That's kind of the sound, for instance, in my case of the big band, or it's just a sound that I really, really like. But once again, I pretty much never have my brain thinking about, what I like about tango or what about jazz. I mean, for me, it's kind of like just music and that have kind of different characteristics.
So everyone has a version of you, your family, your friends, and your fans, but you know yourself best. Who do you think you are?
Oh, I would disagree with that. I think I'm not a good person to ask. But I think hardworking is a word that describes me. I think I'm a person that is pretty much like constantly working. I'm, as a musician, that's kind of only a part of myself. I'm a, very happy and loving father. I mean, my daughters have been a really blessing and to my life. So there are many angles and to who I am. And from the musician part of me, like I would describe, hopefully, I mean, I would like to be like an emotional player. I want to be somebody who, writes well, that writes, music that moves people and that is well written, for the instrumentalist. But I think for a more objective view that I ask the people around me.
I dig it. Very cool. I think that's a great way to wrap everything up. Thank you for taking some time to talk about your newest album, your career in music. I appreciate it, man.
Well, it is my pleasure, and thank you so much for the support.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Argentina, Kansas City, and spots all over the globe, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Pedro for his time and his music. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.